Nathan narrowed his eyes and said to our 10-year-old daughter, "Lila, don't tamper with your food." I tensed myself, prepared to listen to his criticism one more evening. Lila abruptly pushed her plate away, allowing the food to spill down the spotless tablecloth as I was about to defend her. She trembled as she murmured, "I'm sorry, Daddy. I didn't intend to." Nathan slammed his hand on the table, shocking both of us. "How many times must I tell you this? Here, we don't throw away food." My heart pounded as his cheeks flushed, and the vein on his temples accelerated. It was clear from that expression that he was about to lose his temper. I attempted to assist, but Lila's tiny hand reached out and knocked over Nathan's priceless, Babe Ruth-signed baseball. It rolled off the table and onto the floor, making me nauseous. Nathan's eyes grew wide with shock, and time seemed to stop. Lila squished in her chair as he turned his intense gaze toward her. "Rascal, what do you think that thing is worth?" I put a shaking hand on his arm as he got up from his seat. "Please, Nathan, it just happened." He shook his head at me and looked straight at our daughter. "This behavior is not okay, Lila. Respect is something you need to work on." It made Lila's lips tremble, and tears fell down her face. "I am sorry, Daddy. Seriously, I'm sorry." I was scared when Nathan reached for his belt because I knew what was going to happen next. I had seen this routine many times. He would get more and more angry, then hit her as a form of discipline. But Lila's eyes looked different this time. She stopped crying and straightened up. She looked at Nathan, her eyes locked on his. "No, Dad, you won't be able to hurt Mommy anymore." Lila's words stuck in my throat like a heavy curtain lifting to show the ugly truth I had been denying for years. Nathan stopped moving, his face twisted with anger and confusion. "What did you say?" Lila looked at me, and her face showed a mix of drive and sadness. "I've seen how he treats you. The yelling, the pushing, and the bruises you try to hide. It's not fair." As tears ran down my face, my carefully built front fell apart. All the times I had given reasons or told lies to myself or others crumbled in that one heartbreaking moment. While he looked at us, Nathan's face was completely colorless. He lost control and power and couldn't say anything for once. After all those years, I understood that my brave and sweet daughter had given me the strength I needed to face the truth, protect her, and break free from the cycle of abuse that had become my life. I knew that our lives would never be the same. As I held Lila close in my arms, for the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of hope. Hope for a future where love won out over violence and fear. Nathan's prized baseball was broken and lying all over the floor, a good way to show how the fantasy had just been destroyed. At that moment, I promised myself I would never let anyone control me or put me down again. What happened after that terrible dinner was like a bomb going off in our house. Following Lila's confession, there was complete quiet, broken only by Nathan's pacing back and forth while running his hands through his messy hair. He glared at Lila and said, "How dare you?" His eyes were like knives. "How dare you disrespect me like this in my own home?" Lila wiggled, but stood her ground. "I'm sorry, Daddy, but I won't let you hurt Mommy anymore." Nathan turned his angry face around to face me. "Are you, Janelle, telling her lies about me? Have you been?" It was hard for me to swallow because my heart was racing. Now was the moment I had been dreading for years, the fight that could either free me or keep me stuck in his web of control. "No, Nathan," I said, and my voice was strangely calm. "You're not telling the truth. I can't pretend anymore. I said it in a voice that was almost a whisper. He took a step toward me with his hands clenched at his sides, his eyes narrowing. "Do you think this is a game?" he barked. Lila stepped in front of us before he could go any further. Her small frame was shaking, but her eyes were shining with purpose. "Don't you touch her." Nathan jerked back as if he had been hit, his face showing a mix of shock and anger. "How dare you speak to me like that, you ungrateful little brat?" "Don't call her that." I lost it, and the angry words I spoke shocked even me. Nathan's head whipped toward me, and I thought for a split second that he was going to hit me. But there was something about my resistance that made him think twice. "This is your fault, Janelle. You've turned my own daughter against me." I shook my head and felt a strange sense of calm come over me. "No, Nathan. For too long, all I've done is put up with your anger and abuse. She is the only one brave enough to see the truth." His face turned red, and he opened his mouth to say something back, but I cut him off with my hand. "That's it, Nathan. I'm done living in fear, being careful around you and finding reasons for how you act. Enough is enough." Now there was a hint of doubt in his eyes, and I saw a crack in his wall of control for the first time. He laughed and said, "You can't be serious." But his words didn't have the depth they usually did. "I've never been more serious in all my life," I said with a strong voice. "This ends tonight." Nathan's eyes kept going back and forth between Lila and me, and I could see him starting to understand what was going on. Years of trickery and mind games were coming to an end right in front of his eyes. He spat. "You'll regret this." His words were full of poison. "You won't have any money. I will make sure of it." With a fresh strength I hadn't felt in years, I squared my shoulders. "Nathan, I don't care about your money. I only want to get away from you and your abuse." It looked like he was about to break down, because his eyes were getting bigger. The firm stand of Lila, on the other hand, made him think twice. He just shook his head. "No," not believing it. "Fine," he growled. "Then get out. Check out how far you can go without me." With those words, he turned around quickly and stormed out of the room, leaving Lila and me to stand in the ruins of our old lives. While I hugged my daughter tight, tears of joy and determination ran down my face. The front had fallen apart, and there was no going back now. No matter what, it was time to get away. Following my argument with Nathan, there was a lot of stress in our home. For a few days, he would storm out without saying a word and come back late at night, totally drunk. Lila and I walked slowly around him because we didn't know when his anger would flare up. During this rough time, I got in touch with an old friend named Maria. We had become less close after I married Nathan. His controlling behavior slowly cut me off from my support system. But Maria became a rock of strength when I finally got the guts to tell her the truth about my marriage. With worry in her voice over the video call, she said, "Janelle, you need to get out of there. What he's doing is abuse, plain and simple." I nodded, trying hard not to cry. "I understand, but it's not that easy. He said he would take Lila and everything else I have if I leave." Maria's eyes became tough with determination. "Over my dead body, Janelle. You'll figure it out. This is not good enough for you and Lila." The fact that she always stood by me and gave me strength to take the first tentative steps toward freedom was like a lifesaver. As Maria helped me, I started writing down every time Nathan abused me. I carefully recorded his angry outbursts, threats, and the rare but terrifying fights. I began putting away what little money I had and opened a secret bank account to prepare for when we finally got away. At the same time, Lila and I started to slowly weaken Nathan's power in little ways. There were times when we accidentally left doors open, lost his things, and questioned his choices in public. Even though it was risky, the game slowly made him feel less like a leader. "What's wrong with you two?" He would yell, his face twisting in anger. "Are you trying to make me look like a fool?" "Of course not, dear," I would say, acting like I wasn't guilty. "We're just a bit forgetful sometimes." Lila would gravely nod her head, her big eyes wide with fake shock. Nathan would get angry and clench his teeth, but he could never catch us doing something completely disrespectful. As the weeks went by, the stress in our home grew stronger, like a storm building up on the horizon. Nathan's mood became more unstable, and he lost his cool at the smallest irritation. During one of these outbursts, the last thing that set off our escape plan happened. "You ungrateful wretches!" Nathan yelled, hitting the table so hard with his hand that the dishes shook. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me?" Lila jerked, but I kept my eyes on her and refused to run away. "What exactly have you done for us, Nathan?" I asked, though my voice sounded far from calm. "Aside from making our lives a living hell?" He looked shocked, and for a moment, I thought he might hit me. But Lila put her small hand on mine and held me down. "You think you can intimidate us with your tantrums?" I went on, my voice growing stronger as I spoke. "Those times are over. We're no longer scared of you." Nathan's face turned an unpleasant shade of red, and he opened his mouth to scream more insults. I didn't let him this time. I got up from the table and said, "Save your breath, Nathan. We're going tonight." He made an angry sneer with his lips and eyes. "Without me, you'll never make it. I'll find you." But I didn't let him finish. Taking Lila's hand in mine, I turned and walked away, leaving him yelling in anger behind us. A strong sense of determination filled me as we packed our few things. Since the storm was getting worse, it was time to face it head on, no matter what. In the days after we said we were leaving, Nathan's behavior became more dangerous and unpredictable. He seemed to know that he was about to lose control, which made him crazy with despair. "You think you can just walk away from me?" He growled at me one night while Lila was at school, locking me in the kitchen. "After everything I've given you." I didn't back down. I stood my ground. "You've only made our lives worse, Nathan. We should have better." As he stepped closer into my personal space, his eyes narrowing, I held my ground. Even though the smell of old alcohol on his breath made my stomach turn, I told him, "You're wrong. Without you, we'll finally be free." He twitched his jaw, and I thought for a split second that he was going to hit me. However, he then smiled in a mean way, which made me feel cold. "Free," he laughed. "Janelle, you'll never be free of me. I own you, and you've turned my daughter into a brat." I had to fight the urge to lash out, my arms clenched at my sides. "No, Nathan," I said, my voice shaking with anger that I could barely hold back. "We're not your possessions." With a sneer, he turned his smile into a grimace, and his hot breath hit my face. "We'll see about that." Before I could do anything, he grabbed my arm like a vice and dug his fingers into my skin. I screamed in pain and tried to pull away, but he wouldn't let go. "Let go of me," I begged, but my words made him even angrier. He teased, his eyes shining with sarcasm. "Are you going to run away like a scared mouse, Janelle? You're not leaving until I tell you to." Fear tore at my chest as I fought against his hard grip, but it didn't work. He was stronger because he had been angry for years and needed to be in charge so badly. A small voice broke the strain just as I thought I couldn't take it any longer. "Stop, Dad. You're making her sick." Lila walked into the kitchen, and we both stopped moving. She had big, scared eyes that were tough as nails. Nathan let go of my arm a little, but he still held on to me. "Get out of here, Lila. This is between your mother and me." She didn't give up, though. "No, Dad. It's no longer just about you. You can't stop us from going." Nathan pushed me out of the way and looked at our daughter, his angry face twisting up. "You little brat. You think you can talk to me like that?" I put myself between them before he could move toward her. My heart was racing with fear and determination. "Don't you dare touch her," I said in a low, firm voice. Nathan's eyes got really big in shock. He looked surprised for a moment at how defiant I was. With a sneer, he asked, "Or what?" But his eyes showed some doubt. I hunched my shoulders and felt stronger knowing Lila was always behind me when I said, "Or you'll regret it." My words had a weight and certainty I had never felt before. "This is over now, Nathan. We are leaving this place no matter what, and you can't stop us." His hands clenched at his sides, his eyes narrowing, and his whole body shook with anger that he could barely hold in. I thought for a moment that he might lose it and attack, but then his face changed in a way that showed he was starting to realize that his power was slipping away like sand. He turned around and stormed out of the kitchen with an angry snarl. Lila and I stood there together, our bond stronger than ever. I knew things had changed when I slammed my daughter into my arms. We couldn't go back now, that Nathan's despair had pushed us to our limits. It was time for us to get away. After Nathan's angry reaction, Lila and I huddled together because our hearts were still racing from the fight. We had to go ahead with our plan to leave, no matter how dangerous. It was as I held my shaking daughter close to me to calm her down. The doorbell rang, quickly scaring both of us. My heart sank because I thought it was Nathan back to unleash his wrath again. However, when I carefully peered through the peephole, I was surprised to see Nathan's business partner, Michael, pacing nervously on the front step. As I thought about what he said, my heart skipped a beat. Had other people seen our problems the whole time? Michael must have known how scared I was because he kept going. "Janelle, I'm not the only one who has seen it. There are people at the company who know the truth about how Nathan acts at home and at work." There was a spark of hope in me, but fear was also building in my stomach. If Nathan's co-workers knew what kind of person he really was, it could either save us or destroy us. "What do you mean?" My voice was barely above a whisper as I asked. Michael's eyes became more determined. "We've been keeping track of what he does and gathering proof of his unethical behavior and power abuse. The truth will eventually come out, and he will be held responsible." I couldn't help but look at Leela with a question in my mind. By giving her a small nod, I calmed down and turned back to Michael. "And what does this have to do with us?" I asked with a louder voice. Michael's face became softer, and he looked like he felt sorry for her. "Janelle, we know what he's put you through, and we want to help." The weight of what he said hit me hard, and I couldn't breathe. We hadn't even dared to hope for help. How? My voice was shaking with a mix of hope and fear as I asked. Michael took a small flash drive out of the pocket of his jacket. "This shows proof of Nathan's wrongdoings in his personal and professional life. Enough to make sure he can't hurt you again." He pulled the card over to me and kept his eyes on me the whole time. "Go for it, Janelle. Keep yourself and your kids safe with it. Know that you have friends, even if they are hidden." When I reached out and took the drive, my hand shook. Its weight seemed to hold me in that strange moment. Alliances, Such a strange idea that we need so badly. Thank you, I said in a low voice, feeling very moved. I don't know what to say. With a sad smile on his face, Michael shook his head. Don't thank me. Promise me you'll use it to stay away from him forever. I nodded, feeling a strong will to do what was right surge through me. I promised. Michael stopped and put his hand on the doorknob as he turned to leave. One more thing, Janelle. Watch out. Nathan is a dangerous person who will do anything to stay in charge. Even though what he said scared me, I refused to give in to fear any longer. We'll be ready, I said with a strong voice. Michael gave us a solemn nod and disappeared into the night, leaving Leela and me to think about our new allies and how real the proof we had now was. As I held on to the flash drive, I knew that our getaway plan had become more important. The storm clouds were coming together, and this time we wouldn't be by ourselves. Our escape plan became more urgent when we saw how strong Michael's proof was and learned that we had allies working behind the scenes. We knew we had to move quickly before Nathan found out about the storm that was getting worse around him. Following that, we worked hard for days on end, gathering the few things we could take and storing supplies for our trip. When the time came, Maria was always there for us and gave us a safe place to run away to. Are you sure about this, Janelle? She asked over the video call one night. Once you leave, there's no going back. I took a quick look at Leela, who was carefully putting the things we would need in her bag. When she looked into mine, her eyes shone with a purpose that knew no age. I turned back to Maria and gave her a firm nod. I'm sure, I said. We can't keep living this way. No matter what, it's time to get away. There was a mix of pride and worried in Maria's face as her look softened. Okay, I'll be there to pick you up as soon as you say the word. As soon as we started making plans, the stress in our home was almost palpable. Nathan had a suspicious look in his eyes whenever he heard Leela and me whispering to each other. He seemed to feel the change in the air. He would demand, "What are you two up to?" with a voice filled with fierce anger. We both gave each other a stern look and then pretended not to know what was going on. Nothing, dear, just talking about school. Even though his mouth would clench and his nostrils would flare, he could never quite catch us getting ready. The night of our escape had finally come. Nathan had stormed off after another heated fight, giving us just enough time to get away without being seen. Are you ready? My heart was racing as I asked Leela, this while we collected our few belongings. Her small face was set in a mask of determination that both broke and made my heart swell. Ready, Mom? I called. Maria's number was dialed with shaking hands. The burner phone felt like a lifesaver in my hand. I whispered, "It's time." When she answered, my voice was full of fear and excitement as Maria replied, "I'm on my way." Her voice was calm and unwavering. "Be strong, Janelle. Help is on the way." As we waited for Maria to arrive, the old house's creaks and groans sounded louder, which made me nervous. What if Nathan came back early? What if he caught us before we could get away? An old car then pulled up outside, and Leela's small hand went into mine, tying me to the present. The girl said, "Let's go, Mom," her voice shaking, but her eyes bright with resolve. Taking a deep breath, I picked up our few things and followed my daughter into the night, leaving the prison of our old life behind. As we got into Maria's car, I couldn't help but look back at the house one last time. Nathan's steady curtains moved, and for a split second, I thought I saw his outline in the window, watching us get away. Fear sent chills down my spine, but I wasn't going to give in to it this time. When I said, "Drive," My voice was hard and steady. Maria already knew. With a sharp nod, she pulled away from the curb and sped off into the night. Our future was unsure, but it was no longer dominated by Nathan's chow. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders as the miles went by between us and our old prison. It was replaced by a sense of excitement and newfound drive. We were free, and nothing, not even Nathan's anger, could hold us back. In the weeks after our brave escape, Leela and I couldn't stop looking over our shoulders. We were half expecting Nathan to show up at any moment and pull us back into his web of abuse and control. But as the days turned into weeks, and we got used to our new life with Maria's help, our constant fear slowly changed into careful hope. It was during this change that Nathan's carefully built front started to show its first cracks. There were rumors that he did bad business and was abusive, fueled by proof leaked anonymously by his former co-workers. At first, the reports were just idle chatter that Nathan's lawyers and PR team could easily brush off. But as more and more damaging evidence came to light, the investigation grew more intense and quickly turned into a full-on media firestorm. "Have you seen the news?" Maria asked me one morning as she gave me a newspaper. Her voice was a mix of happiness and worry. The words, "Local businessmen accused of abuse and corporate misconduct," across the front page made my heart skip a beat. In the newspaper, there was a blurry picture of Nathan, his face twisted into a snarl as he pushed past a group of reporters. The text said, "More defends allegations, threatens legal action." A rush of mixed feelings went through me. Relief that the truth was finally coming out, but also fear that Nathan's anger would find us in the end. "He's not going to let this go," I whispered, and my fingers traced the angry lines on his face. Maria gave a mean, shaky head. "Most likely not, Janelle. We're ready for him, though. He can no longer hurt you." Her words made us think about the people who were on our side and had risked everything to tell us about Nathan's wrongdoings and give us the proof we needed to protect ourselves. The media's obsession with Nathan's problems only got worse as the days went by. Reporters swarmed his office and home, asking questions and taking pictures as he tried in vain to keep up a front of control. With his face twisted with anger, he would say, "No comment," and push his way through the crowd of reporters. But the leaks kept coming, and each one was worse than the last. There was proof of financial wrongdoing, sexual misconduct claims, and even rumors of criminal activity. There was a lot of truth coming out at once, and Nathan's carefully crafted image was being washed away. Leela and I watched from the safety of our new home as Nathan's downfall happened. We felt a strange sense of karma and justice wash over us. "He deserves it, doesn't he, Mom?" Leela asked as she watched yet another harmful story on the news one night. I was on the fence because I wanted to get back at Nathan for what he did, and I was still afraid that he might be able to get to us. I finally told her, "I don't know, honey," and pulled her close. "However, I know that he can no longer hurt us. It doesn't matter. We're safe." Leela nodded, her brow wrinkling as she thought about what I said. Then she gave a small smile, her voice filled with a passion that was far beyond her years. "I'm glad he's getting what he deserves," she said. "After everything he did to us, it's only fair," I told myself as I looked into Leela's eyes, which were now filled with great power and determination. It was impossible for me not to feel proud. When Nathan got angry, my daughter was so little and easy to hurt. But now she had grown into a fierce fighter. The hard times we'd been through hadn't broken her spirit. I knew right then that no matter what the future held, we would face it together, stronger, smarter, and never again bound by Nathan's control. His empire might fall apart, and his image might be ruined, but we had something much more valuable: our freedom, our honor, and a bond that not even his worst attacks could break. It was heartbreaking to see how quickly Nathan fell from power, and I couldn't help but enjoy the sweet taste of revenge. Not for myself, but for all the people who had been abused by him. The monster had been found out, and now he would have to deal with the terrible effects of his actions, one crushing blow at a time. When the dust cleared from Nathan's spectacular fall from grace, Leela and I were at a crossroads. We had to start over and rebuild our lives from the ashes of our old situation. "Where do we go from here, Mom?" Leela asked one night as we sat together, the shifting light from the TV making her look thoughtful. She asked a question, and I slowly let out a breath we had been avoiding. After planning our escape and holding on to the dream of freedom for so long, now that we had reached that impossible goal, the way forward seemed both scary and exciting. I finally told her, "Anywhere we want, honey," as I tucked a loose hair behind her ear. "The world is ours now." There was a small smile at the corner of Leela's mouth, and I caught a glimpse of the happy child she used to be before Nathan's abuse took away her innocence. As she whispered, "I like the sound of that," her eyes lit up with renewed hope. After a few weeks, Leela and I had to make the hard choice to leave our temporary safe place with Maria and go out on our own. We were thankful for her steadfast support, but we both felt like we needed to go our own way, free from the memories of the past. With the help of proof from Nathan's former co-workers, I was able to get a small settlement from his business, which was falling apart quickly. It wasn't nearly enough to make up for all the years of pain, but it was a start. So Leela and I left Nathan's abuse in the rearview mirror, taking our few belongings with us and a newfound sense of determination. We were ready to start over in a new place. I was amazed at the path that had led us to this point. As we unpacked the few things we had saved and settled into our cozy apartment, I felt the strength to break free, the courage to face what lay ahead, and the determination to keep going even when things looked hopeless. "Are you happy, Mom?" Leela asked one night as we sat on our used couch together, the smell of pizza delivery filling the room. I took a look around our small space, noticing how the furniture didn't fit and the paint on the walls was coming off. From the outside, it might have looked like a hard and difficult life, but at that very moment, all I felt was deep happiness and gratitude. "Happier than I've been in a very long time," I replied, and I hugged her tightly. Leela cuddled up next to me and let out a happy sigh. "Yes, Mom. Yes, me too." Following that, Nathan's name was no longer mentioned in the media. Instead, the newest, most significant story took the place of his transgressions. However, his legacy endured for us in the lessons we had learned the hard way and the physical and emotional wounds we bore. I would be dishonest if I claimed that his shadow didn't linger and occasionally raise questions and anxieties about our newfound tranquility. However, each time those echoes of the past attempted to overwhelm us, we would find strength in the connection we had formed during our struggle. We were fighters, survivors, and most importantly, a family whose love for one another was unbreakable. We had survived the harshest storms thanks to me. As I watched Leela develop into a resilient, kind young woman, I realized that our tale was one of triumph over adversity and a celebration of the unwavering spirit that had brought us to freedom. Leela's laughter reverberated throughout our tiny apartment. Nathan had lost all his influence and power, and his reign of terror was finished. However, We sprang from the ashes like a phoenix, flying toward a future we had created with our wings spread wide. I was certain that we would deal with any issues together, without interruption, without hindrance, and without ever being held back.